Really, we're digging into? Really? All morning. Okay. Hi, I'm Adam Wall. I am the collections manager for Crustacea at the Natural History Museum in Los Angeles. I'm heavily involved in the digitization project in general for DigIn at the museum across most of the marine taxa. I have a slide up here, which is probably useless in a space like this. I was going to use this to convince you that digitization was important. I have my favorite reasons why it's important. So I'm going to talk a lot from my perspective, which is very LA museum centric. So the Biology department has done a really amazing job. They have digitized essentially everything that they have in their collection, 98,000 specimens. You can see these amazing transects where they have marine mammals sampled from the middle of oceans, really cool stuff. I like the idea of collections as time machines to go back in time to ecosystems that don't exist anymore. I think that's a great reason to digitize them. I like the fact that I can go from one continent to another continent by moving one shelf over in my collection. Makes it very efficient to do research that has a big spatial component to it. I love the fact that collections answer questions. We can use our collections to answer questions that we don't need to answer yet. So those are kind of my big things. And it's really cool that mammalogy had kind of figured that out. For some reason, marine invertebrates has not gotten there yet. And we don't really have much of a plan except for right now, this is our plan. This is Lindsay Groves. He's the collections manager of malacology. He is a machine. He has perfectly digitized 118,000 lots in the last 30 years of his career. He was an early adopter of databasing back when databases were spreadsheets for all intents and purposes. And he's been doing amazing work. He's already digitized by himself more than the entire mammalogy collection. Unfortunately, we have a problem at our institution, and this is our problem. There's 500,000 lots of mollusks, and there's one Lindsay. And he's already been doing this for 38 years, about. And if you start to do the back of the envelope math, he's 1/4 of the way done, and he's pretty close to retirement. And it's one of these scale problems. We have approaches, and we've been trying to use them, and they solved problems for collections of the scale of like mammalogy. But for the larger collections, it's just not going to quite work. Earlier, I said he perfectly digitized 118,000 lots. I'm not joking. Like, he has gone through and corrected the commas. He's done these amazing interpretations of for georeferencing 5 miles off of this lighthouse, this degree off of that, and interpreted that. Unfortunately, it's also very subjective the way these things have been done, and we haven't done it in a very systematic way. But we were obsessed with it being perfectly correct, and he did that, which is cool, but not super sustainable. When I came to this project, I decided that we probably needed to ask ourselves the question of, is it better to have a few number of specimens perfectly digitized, or do we want to have more digitized well enough to answer the questions that I want answered? Spoiler alert, we went with the second one. What do I mean by perfectly? Just like really simple decisions. Like, I'm looking at this label and I'm telling the digitizer to parse every single piece of information into it from this label into a Darwin Core compliant field in my database. Turns out that's really hard to teach 30 new people to do, which is what we ended up having to do for the scale of our commitment for DigIn. Makes for very messy data. Also results in some arguments with curators about the semantics of where this data should go anyways. An alternative way that we've decided for our core collection, which we are very lucky to have a lot of expeditionary data, we have decided that the core things that we would capture from this whole array of labels, this is from one of my favorite cancer crabs. It's a local species up and down here. They're delicious if you ever want to get them there. I think it's the red rock crab is a common name for it. This thing is really great because all we're capturing is that taxonomy, so genus and species, and the authority, so Randall there. And then for this, all the metadata for the collecting event is available based off of this one station number down there in the bottom. We have intentionally decided to throw away all the other data that's on these labels. I also say we're not throwing away, we're punting on it. We're going to come back one day and interact with those data once a researcher has decided that they're really interested about this Cancer productus that's from 1942. But we're deferring actually capturing those extra bits. We're doing everything as quickly and as poorly as we possibly can. So if you look in the bottom left, you'll see this whole big photo of the whole room. And there's a person standing there wearing black, and she's standing in front of a giant box. That is the setup that we built to take photos of labels. And that generates the photos of the labels that you see with the black background. It's huge, has a DSLR. There's a big stage with class sheets that those things are sandwiched between. There's a big distance between the background and the actual plane where the labels are. So that background is like perfect. It fades to infinity. You'll see on the right, there's a photo of labels that's just in a tray. It's inside of the little Amazon shipping box that the $100 document scanner camera came on, and it fits into the space that we actually have. So as possible. So we made tables that fit exactly the size of the aisles of our collection. And so that people didn't have to stand on the top of the ladder and put their laptop on top of the carriage and digitize in place. We made it into a standing desk that goes up to different heights. And we got the highest one we could possibly get. So you could actually have it be at the same level as most of the shelves in that room. But decisions like that, it objectively takes a crappy photo of labels. But can you read the information on the label and take those data and put them onto GBIF? Yes, you can. So we've decided to do less. Sometimes doing more gets you more data too. So we never used barcodes in our collection. We decided we're going to start using barcodes. So it took us a couple weeks worth of time to implement these two-dimensional data matrix barcodes into our data management system. Now we can do that. So now you don't have to type these numbers. We use this to trigger digitization events. We also decided at the same time if we're going to be putting barcodes into our specimens as a collections manager that deals with fluid preserved specimens. You spend a lot of your life shaking jars trying to get the label to flip to the other side. You've been doing it for decades and you know that you'll never be able to shake it to be on the right side, and you should just open it and use your forceps to like flip the label over, but you still desperately shake the jar. We decided to get them printed double-sided, and that took a fair bit of time, and it actually took me a couple of days to find a print house in Los Angeles that would do this job for us because they all said it was impractical / impossible with the equipment that they had to generate what we needed. Finally found one place that would do it. And it took 2 days of my time in the front end. But the way we usually make these labels is we have people cut them out. The back of the envelope math is it was going to take someone 12 to 16 weeks of full-time work to cut out all 500,000 labels. So you save a little bit of time by doing it that way. And then let's just talk about time. So I'd like you guys to ask questions about this and suggest what you would do differently to save a little bit of time. So on the scale of my commitment for digitizing DigIn specimens at the Natural History Museum Los Angeles, if you ask me to do you a little favor, if it takes 15 seconds, I would do that anytime you ask me to do that. But on the scale of DigIn, you can kind of do this math. We're talking about 15 seconds per lot, 60 seconds in a minute, 60 minutes in an hour. Let's pretend that you're an hourly employee and you only work 8 hours a day. There's 20 work days in a month. I drink a lot of coffee and that kind of hurts my efficiency. So like I'm not 100% efficient at my job. I have to do HR training to make me a little bit more politically correct. All these different things. So let's just say an average employee is maybe 80% efficient with their time. That means that if you ask someone to do something that took 15 seconds on each of these lots, you're talking about 10.4 months of a full-time employee's time. That's crazy. And you might say you're kind of making decisions to save a few seconds and you're throwing those data away. We're not. You can always go back and edit these records on GBIT. We should all be cleaning our data constantly. We're always updating our data. This is deferring work, getting a draft record out there that's useful for so many situations, I think is more important. What is 15 seconds value in the scope of the situation? We track, oh good, it is small enough that you can't see. This is everyone's name, and I can tell you how many seconds it takes them to click between different fields in the database. I can tell you who's the slowest and fastest person. I can tell you if you could make an average person as a digitizer that does 1.26 records per minute, that would get you 80,000 extra records done in the project. If you were the fastest person, who will remain nameless, but maybe her name's Lily, that would be 3.4 records per minute on average. And she's done like tens of thousands of them at that pace. And that would be 224,000 records more that you could get done by making a decision to save yourself 15 seconds. So that's kind of where we're at. My collection is different from yours. Do what's best for you. You have a small collection, do whatever it takes to do exactly what you want. If you have a huge collection, I would invite you to think about Oprah's advice. The most powerful thing that you can do is say no to something, because if you say no, you don't have to do it and you save time. Questions. These are the people doing the actual work, all 30 something of them. This is real time, actually.
What's your turnover rate for your digitizers?
Desperately low. We fire more than we lose any other way. There's a tremendous amount of overhead. So part of that overhead is there's about 60 hours worth of training to take a incredibly accomplished undergraduate or master's student in every other aspect of their life and make them capable of doing this digitization. So a fair bit of that, and it's if you don't get to a certain level of proficiency and accuracy, then we let them go. But there's a very high retention rate, actually. People love this work. I don't quite understand, but they really love this work. Yes? I gamify my entire life. Yes? Oh, I'm sorry. Chrissy asked if I had thought about gamifying this to make it more entertaining and to just make it more effective. I have thought about it a lot. We had talked about making prizes for the person who did the most, the fastest, just like putting Easter eggs into the collection. Every so often you find this one and then you get $100. I'm a strange person. I would actually like to pay these digitizers by the lot done so that they are incentivized to get it done faster type of thing. So I've definitely thought about that. We thought about it. For the people doing like the scanning with the herbarium sheets, you might have noticed that they have like a counter for your efficiency, your rate over the whole hour that's being displayed. And if you're slowing down, it goes down a little bit, but it's buffered. We're trying to do things like that, but we're kind of sensitive about it. We don't want to make people feel like they're slow, because I'm a person who personally believes that slow is fast, or smooth is slow. No, what is it? Slow is smooth, smooth is fast. If you make a mistake, it takes so much time to undo that mistake. So I want you to move as fast as you can go without making mistakes. So, yeah. Yes?
Okay. Yeah. Behind that, how many people are QAing your sort of transcription work? 30 people front end doing it, then is there a follow-up?
So we invest heavily in making sure that people shouldn't be making mistakes, and they're 100% quality controlled during that training process. Then they are randomly quality controlled after that. And then there's constant retraining, because every time we go through this collection, every day we find new things, and our things are adopted. And then we have a full-time person that basically does QC. Yeah. And I think that's me. I'm done.